Welcome to the A Game Poker Podcast. My guest on today's podcast is Anton Wigg. Anton is a top tournament player with over $9 million in live and online cashes, including EPT main event and Sunday Million wins. Beyond his own individual achievements in poker, he's formed a group of truly elite high-stakes tournament players, and we'll be getting some insight into what Anton's gained from that experience and the kind of work that those players do together. In addition to this, Anton's now combining his poker career with a startup outside poker, and we'll be talking about how he's drawn on his experiences within poker in his new business venture. So let's talk to Anton and share his insights. First of all, welcome, Anton. Great to see you again. How's things?
Hello, sir. Yeah, things are good. Very, very busy at the moment. I have a startup business, so that's eating up a lot of my time, but it's good. I get to learn a lot. I get to make some power moves, and I feel like I'm finding somewhat of a balance, as much as balance applies when you want to have extraordinary results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to actually discussing a little bit about your startup later. I want to start by just asking you to reflect back on your poker career up to this point, because in the intro, I've talked about some of the big highlights, the EPT main event win, the Sunday Million win. But I just want to look a little bit beyond that and ask you to just reflect on the moments where, looking back, you really felt that you moved forward. Maybe they were realizations, maybe they were new habits, maybe there were different directions you took. Just have a little think about that and just share with everybody what you think really took you forward towards the success which we now know you've enjoyed.
I think it might sound a little counterintuitive, but I think the highlights are those are results. They're very valuable and obviously super important in order to have a successful career. But I think those are not really the defining moments. Like, I remember winning EPT Copenhagen, and my exact feeling was, well, that was sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Realizing that that's not how I define my career. That was just like the result that came from a process at that time, and later in, let's call it a more organized process. But I think the more defining moments are the downs. Like when you're doubting yourself, is this my career choice? You're going through a downswing. I think that's a much better way of defining it, because there you have to make an active choice. Like, is this what I want to do? Is this where I want to put my energy? So I would say, like, I have a few of those. I remember specifically I'd worked a lot. I put in a lot of effort into my game, maybe not in the most efficient way. And I made a final table of the Party Poker Millions 5K, like the first Millions tournament that they ran.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, expectations are high, a lot of money up top. And first hand on the final table, like getting kings versus queens and lose and just bust from like being in third place, and instead of being big chip leader and being in a very good position, I missed out. And it was one of those moments where I just had to like give up for a day. And I usually don't do this, but like I was at home, my girlfriend's, like, I literally like fell to the floor. and it was a good moment, because taking that day off to reflect and see, is this like what I want to do for myself, and coming to the conclusion that yes, this is actually motivating me. As sick as that might sound, like, obviously that's a very painful moment, but it does define you in how you deal with that. And I think over time I've grown more resilient. I remember bubbling one of my first 25Ks in Florida in the most brutal fashion. It was like 13 all-ins before it was like my turn. And I ended up losing the pot with like a good situation to like triple up 40-60 or something like that. And at that point, I was ready for it. I just tapped the table. I gave everyone a smile at 4 a.m. in the morning and said good luck. And I went up to my room and then I gave up.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really interesting because I think how you progress as a professional poker player, and I think this is very true in tournaments, is defined largely by how you respond to downswings, far more, as you say, than the successes, because the successes, pretty well by definition, are few and far between. And it's the ability to stay in the game and improve during those downswings, which really defines the difference between who succeeds and who doesn't. Could you talk a little bit more about how you responded? Maybe there were things you did in terms of improving your technical game. Maybe there were ways you frame things mentally. Could you just talk a little bit about how you responded? You've talked at a general level about how you were like, no, I want to get up again and I want to fight. But were there more specific steps you took during those phases? Because I'm guessing there's probably more than one downswing in a career which has lasted as long as yours has.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think everything works in iterations in a sense. I think like that's a part of the journey that you're on, and especially being in something like MTT poker, like all you have to do is run one of these variance calculators and see what is your outcome given your BB100 win rate, et cetera, et cetera. And no matter how big your win rate is, there's always that one line that goes down, and it's just like, that is an undesirable result. You could be the best player in the world and you could have the most undesirable result just due to the fact that there's a lot of variance in the game. So the way that I like to think about it is iterations or upgrades, if you see it like that. Taking the collective experience from this round and then mapping that towards people that has, say, a better process, that has access to more information, finding people that are better than yourself in certain areas and then trying to learn from them, I find is a very good way to at least get a good gauge of what up to that next iteration. And I think that is one of my strengths. Like I always look to people and I don't look to see that they are quote unquote better than me, but I do think that they have skill sets that I don't yet possess, right? So looking at very successful people and seeing what makes them so great. You know, is it the way that they move? Is it the way that they take in information? Is it their presence? Like all these things, and being able to like observe, identify, and then of course like integrate as you wish. I'm not saying that you should like push yourself to do all these things at once, but it's good to be curious, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to talk later about the group of MTT players who you've formed. And you, probably more than anybody I know, have more systematically looked to bring in a network of people who can all add to each other's sum of knowledge, be it mentally, be it technically, and frankly, holistically about your entire way of approaching the game. I think we're going to get some important insights there. What you've said really leads me very neatly into really what's the theme of this podcast, which is mindset. And I just want you to talk about your view of the importance of the mental game of poker as opposed to the technical skills, how we play our ranges, etc. Just talk to me a little bit about, you know, how you see that when you realized it was important and what you've done to upgrade yourself in that regard.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in my experience, everything is mindset or everything is consciousness. Per definition, whether you're waking or asleep, everything goes through your brain. So just to kind of lay the foundation, if you can manage that, then you have a really good base for adding on knowledge. If you don't have that in order, if you don't have your own mind in a place where you can access that type of thing, that's going to be a very it's going to be a process that has a lot of friction, right? So, you know, I always use the visualization of your brain as a computer, which coincidentally they did model computers after brains.
Yeah.
And just thinking about it in that way, you know, like software, hardware, Even a computer cannot do multiple things at once. I mean, maybe quantum computing will be able to solve that problem, but you have to think about things in processes and making sure that the hardware works, so your body, and that the software works, and that you continuously find ways to upgrade that, install that new cool software that you're looking for, and also be able to utilize it. Unfortunately, it's not like the Matrix. You can't just like download and know Kung Fu in 2-3 minutes or faster than that. But there are definitely techniques where you can access that type of information quicker, and that's the type of iterations that I was referring to.
Yeah, this is interesting. I've been reading or rereading. I think it's called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman recently, and he uses this idea of creating a particular alter ego for ourselves because we bring different elements of ourselves into different fields of play. And the version of ourselves that we may bring to the poker tables may be very different from the version of ourselves that we want to bring into our personal life. And the idea of actually visualizing ourselves as something different, something appropriate for that field of play, is actually a really powerful idea. And that technique is something I certainly use with my clients. And I'm actually taking a lot further. I've had clients visualize themselves as Japanese cartoon sort of warriors in certain situations, guys who maybe have trouble being aggressive at the tables. And again, visualizing your brain as a computer is a really powerful idea. Just want to take this a little bit further and just say, what have you found your biggest challenges in terms of the mental game, in terms of your poker career, and how have you responded to those challenges?
I think there's always challenges, and I think those kind of change and iterate over time. I think the number one challenge is remaining consistent in a practice. And I think it's this feeling of once you make an upgrade that the work kind of stops there, because you're already feeling good. You're already feeling like you got it. You're already feeling like, feeling that I want to bring action, and now I have that power, already harnessed that. Whereas if you don't keep sharpening that blade, then it's gonna get dull, right? Yeah. So maintaining a practice over time, I think, has been the number one challenge. There's obviously a lot more that goes to that. I think making space and time for those type of activities is also very, very important. It's easy to make this mistake, and as I'm in a leadership position in certain aspects, I do try to provide this service for the people that I work with and tell them that if you need rest for a day, that's something that you need to take for yourself, because the net result of you showing up and putting in work that might still be high quality, by the way, but pushing yourself outside of your boundaries, pushing yourself and forcing